$300 billion to sneak into Iran through Arab allies. Is Washington outsourcing Tehran's rescue package to its Gulf partners? US rejects any direct cash deal. But is it secretly pushing Arab states to pay Iran's Reconstruction bill instead? Is Trump now scrambling for a covert workaround to funnel money to Iran in exchange for a fragile peace deal? Will Washington corner a key Arab ally into unfreezing Iranian funds and footing the cost of ending this war? US officials are exploring indirect ways to get economic value to Iran, through goods, investments, or third-party spending, without transferring American money straight into Iranian accounts. This stems from Donald Trump's firm stance that he will not approve any arrangement that looks like handing cash to Tehran, reflecting his long-standing political promise on Iran. As part of this, Washington has reportedly asked Gulf Arab partners to shoulder much of Iran's post-war reconstruction costs instead of the US paying directly. One idea is a huge Gulf-backed investment fund, worth around $300 billion, that would finance rebuilding Iranian infrastructure and key industries over time. Another track looks at unfreezing Iranian assets in Qatar, but only under tight rules that stop Tehran from freely accessing the cash. Under that model, Qatar would use the unfrozen money to buy approved goods such as medicines and industrial feedstocks on Iran's behalf. Those supplies would then be delivered directly to Iran under US-approved mechanisms, allowing Washington to claim control over how the value is used. All these financial ideas are conditional, giving Iran access only if it accepts broader US terms on issues like de-escalation and nuclear limits. Trump is said to worry that any visible flow of money to Iran could revive accusations similar to the Obama-era pallets of cash controversy. Because of this, the White House is highly sensitive to optics, designing relief in ways that do not resemble the 2015 nuclear deal's public image. Despite these financial workarounds, Iran's enriched uranium stockpile still remains the hardest unresolved issue and the main obstacle to any full nuclear agreement. Iran has reportedly demanded the release of a staggering $24 billion in frozen assets as a central condition of new talks with the United States, insisting that access to these funds must be part of any preliminary agreement to reopen diplomatic ties. According to Iran's Tasnim news agency, a source close to Tehran's negotiation team has disclosed this demand, claiming insiders directly involved in the discussions confirmed the $24 billion figure as a non-negotiable term. Iranian negotiator Mohammad Ghalibaf arrived in Doha on May 25 with the stated purpose of finalizing the terms of a potential agreement with the United States, joining high-stakes talks intended to bridge differences over the frozen funds and other security concerns. Tehran says it is seeking the $24 billion as part of a detailed 14-point memorandum of understanding with the United States, framing the release as one element among many conditions meant to guarantee long-term commitments from both sides. Reports indicate that Iran is demanding that half of the $24 billion be released immediately upon public announcement of the deal, signaling a push for upfront payments rather than staggered or conditional disbursements. It is notable that Tasnim remains the sole Iranian news outlet to publish these detailed claims about the $24 billion demand so far, raising questions about sourcing and whether other state media will corroborate the report. Iranian media outlets estimate that Tehran has between $100 billion and $123 billion in assets frozen in foreign banks around the world, figures that Tehran cites to justify its leverage in negotiations over partial releases. In 2023, approximately $6 billion of Iranian funds were reportedly transferred from South Korea to Qatar under separate arrangement, a partial thaw that represented one of the few concrete movements of Tehran's overseas reserves. That transfer of $6 billion was reportedly linked to a prisoner swap in which Iran released 5 American citizens, illustrating how financial transfers and hostage diplomacy have been interwoven in past deals. Despite earlier transfers, Iran's funds held in Qatar are reported to have been blocked again after the Gaza war escalated tensions between the United States and Iran, leaving those assets inaccessible as diplomatic relations soured. The October 7 Hamas attack on Israel helped trigger the broader Gaza war, an outbreak of violence that in turn froze previous negotiations with Iran and cast a long shadow over any efforts to resume talks over frozen assets. On May 25, US military forces carried out so-called self-defense strikes targeting Iranian missile sites in the south, actions described by officials as necessary responses to imminent threats and part of a broader effort to protect American personnel and assets in the region. Despite the fresh military strikes, President Trump publicly maintained that talks with Iran were proceeding nicely, insisting that diplomacy continued even as kinetic actions unfolded and raising questions about how battlefield events might affect negotiations. US forces said they struck both Iranian missile installations and several boats accused of laying sea mines, claiming the combined strikes were aimed at neutralizing threats to commercial shipping and coalition vessels operating in nearby waters. Marco Rubio commented that, in his view, a deal between the United States and Iran remained possible despite the recent military actions, suggesting that diplomatic channels could survive short-term escalations if political will and concessions existed on both sides. Iran later claimed it had targeted a U.S. F-35 fighter jet following President Trump's order for new strikes, an assertion Tehran presented as a proportionate response and part of a pattern of tit-for-tat military signaling between the two countries. Tehran further asserted that its forces intercepted an American drone that had violated Iranian airspace, framing the interception as a defensive measure and evidence of what it characterized as repeated U.S. incursions near its sovereign borders. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned explicitly that it reserves the right to retaliate against the United States for hostile actions, signaling a readiness to respond militarily if Tehran deems U.S. strikes to cross its red lines. The IRGC claimed that U.S. drones and fighter jets repeatedly violated Iranian airspace during the period of heightened tensions, alleging that these incursions justified both Iranian defensive actions and raised the risk of further escalation. At the same time, Iranian officials complained that U.S. contradictions and inconsistencies in policy and public statements remained a major hurdle to progress in negotiations, arguing that mixed signals undermined trust and complicated any effort to reach a durable agreement.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.